Unmasking the latest round of COVID hypocrites, with critics slamming these top Democrats as Dr. Fauci defends the new CDC mask guidance for the vaccinated. Watch.
The fact is, there are things that are individual responsibilities that one has, and there are things that have to do with you individually, which also impact others. If you get infected, even if you are without symptoms, you very well may infect another person who may be vulnerable, who may get seriously ill. So in essence, you are encroaching on their individual rights.
This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, and here today, my co-host Kayleigh McEnany, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, host of No Interruption on Fox Nation Tommy Lahren, and in the center virtual seat, Lawrence Jones, Fox & Friends enterprise reporter and Fox News political analyst. Now, the mayor of D.C. is kicking off the hypocrisy hit parade as Democrat Muriel Bowser was seen maskless at a wedding after reinstating the city's mask mandate. Her Chicago counterpart, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, also seen maskless, rubbing elbows with celebrities amid the massive crowds at Lollapalooza. This as she's also facing criticism for even allowing that massive outdoor music festival at all. And then there's former President Obama, who is reportedly defying CDC guidance for his upcoming 60th birthday bash, inviting nearly 500 guests to his Martha's Vineyard mansion. All while COVID cases are rising nationwide and President Biden says more restrictions could soon be on the way. Meantime, Nancy Pelosi, who just reinstated the mask mandate in the House, is directing Capitol Police to arrest those who refuse to wear one. And she seemed to flout her own rules just days later.
Can we take off our masks just for the photo? Would that be allowed?
Yes.
Lawrence, welcome back to the show. This pattern is exhausting. We are now 17 months into what has been a pandemic, and these fluctuations of mask mandates and not, with these Democratic leaders continuing to behave like this, to flout their own mandates that they set in broad daylight.
Yeah, Emily, it's great to be here with all you ladies. You know, I have no problem with these elected officials living their life. Hell, that's what the majority of Americans are saying right now. Just let us live our life. Let's move on from this. It's over a year now. Let's get back to some normalcy. The problem is that they've been telling the public that they can't do that. And you know, at first I thought, look, the mask and all of these measures were maybe a security blanket. COVID did break a lot of people, especially mentally. A lot of people are still recovering from that. And so I thought it was that measure that we should judge them by, but they don't believe in any of this nonsense because we know for a fact now that the rules that they're replacing for others, they're not following them themselves. And I would caution our leaders to look around the world. Look at places like France, where there is massive protests going on, where people are saying they reject it. They reject what government is doing. They're sick of it. And it's only a matter of time before those type of protests come to the United States. We saw the same thing with Cuba. People are talking about freedom, and they rejected socialism, and they don't like the outcomes of that. Americans should be aware of this, as well as our leaders as well. But I think there's a hidden agenda in this. And I think that they don't want to release the control. I think this is just another way for government to become daddy again. And we know where this ends at the end of the day. But I don't see a shift from the Democratic Party. They also want to use some of these measures to continue the election the way it was this past year. Some of these safety measures that were put in place. They're able to pass H.R. 1 if they say, look, guys, you know, we're still in a pandemic type environment, so we need more drive-through voting. We need more mail-in voting. I just think that at the end of the day, as much as I want to say that they have goodwill, there's always an end goal with the Democrats.
Right, and Kennedy, to Lawrence's points, you know, as certain rights and liberties became constricted and people were willing to do so for the good of public health, that's now been washed away by this totally confusing mixed messaging and the hypocrisy on these leaders' part. They fail to demonstrate then that type of importance, even as the Delta variant is worming its way through the country, when Americans couldn't rely on some type of clear messaging. They have nothing to go on from these people, so why should any of them expect compliance?
No, and that's who they should be looking to, the politicians that they right now almost completely distrust. And their actions betray their beliefs. They believe that the virus is not deadly, or at least the virus is very political and isn't going to infect Democrats. So whatever standards they have for their own personal lives and who they go out and see and hobnob with, those are the standards that we should have. And it's much better for politicians to say, you have to be the one in charge of your own decisions. You know, instead of these blanket mandates that end up hurting, you know, the people who need the most liberty and the most opportunity right now. They're the ones that are hamstrung by this hypocrisy. So whatever they're doing, that's the new uniform set of standards. So we can go to weddings, we can go to concerts, we can have parties, we can be unmasked because they did. They're the ones with the data, and they're the ones with the control.
Right, lead by example, Tommy. And to Kennedy's point about blanket mask mandates, what we are seeing, however, is just a stick otherwise. Not only are they failing to comply with it, but there's a massive stick. Speaker Pelosi threatening with arrest using Capitol Police as a stick for her fellow congressmen if they fail to wear a mask while vaccinated.
Yeah, you can loot a Target or a Foot Locker. You can have mass shoplifting, and the Democrats don't bat an eyelash. But if you don't wear your mask, or as I call it, your face diaper, then Nancy Pelosi is going to come after you. But, I agree with my fellow panelists here. I'm not upset at these Democratic mayors or any Democrats at all for exercising their rights, for living their lives. That's what we should be doing at this point. At the beginning, we were told we had to flatten the curve. And if we ever fall for that again, we are morons and we are sheep. Now, the first time we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how to control this pandemic. It has been over a year and a half now. We have accepted the fact that COVID is not going to be eradicated anytime soon. We have to be safe. We have to be responsible. We have to protect the most vulnerable. But we also have to live our lives. And as Lawrence pointed to, once Democrats and once tyrants and wannabe dictators, once they gain control, once they start convincing you to give up your rights, you won't likely get them back. And that's what we're seeing now. They dangle the carrot in front of your face. First it was, if you get vaccinated, then you don't have to wear a mask. And then they took that away. And now they're saying even if you're vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. And Americans are sitting around wondering what is next. And I know that there are a lot of business owners as well that are sitting there clenching their teeth, very concerned that we're going to have more lockdowns, more shutdowns. Then that's going to lead to more of this unemployment, people collecting money, not being able to get them to return to work. This is a slippery slope. And Lawrence is exactly right. They're weaponizing this. They weaponize fear every single time. And I believe they have their eyes set on the midterm elections to pull the same thing that they did in 2020 with mass mail-in voting through COVID fear.
And Kaylee, Tommy talks about once a right is extinguished or surrendered, it's really difficult to get it back. And we heard in the intro, Dr. Fauci saying that failing to wear a mask is, quote, encroaching on others' individual rights.
Right. He might not know what individual rights are. I can share that with him. The First Amendment, your right to go to church, your right to worship your God, your right to political speech. These are individual rights, not someone else's right being infringed upon because your failure to wear a mask. Perhaps he needs to go study individual rights. That being said, let me just address the fact that with Muriel Bowser, this is not her first offense at hypocrisy. Do you remember she took the train to Delaware, or she traveled to Delaware, rather, I don't know if it was by train or plane, to go to a Biden victory party, despite her own city's regulation about not traveling to high areas of COVID-19. She violated that. Lightfoot, once again, this is her second offense, because remember she went to go get that haircut, and when asked about that haircut, when others couldn't go receive a haircut, she said, well, I'm the public face of the city. And that is the root of the problem. They say to you in the middle of a pandemic, you can't go to church, your kids can't go to school, your child must wear a mask, but I'll go to French Laundry in California. If I'm Barack Obama, I'll have hundreds of people at my house at my lavish Martha's Vineyard mansion, but you don't go to school, you don't go to church, different rules for you than for me. And this all comes down, I'll never forget being in the Trump administration. Every time there was a Trump rally, it was a super spreader event. But the BLM protest, 1,000 public health officials came out and said, quote, however, as public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. Once again, one standard for the Trump rally, another standard for the BLM protest. Americans see the hypocrisy.
Right. That for a year and a half, we have been seeing this pattern of hypocrisy. It is exhausting, and it has eroded any credibility that these guys have for setting these mandates. No wonder everyone's ignoring it.